Hi. All right. Let's get started. And please, you can use your tools to raise your hand if you have any questions throughout, and we'll try to answer those. And certainly, we can answer questions at the end. Um, but this is the Millennia Tech Talk, and we will be really focusing on understanding information, finding missing information, and how best to manage that. Certificate of occupancy missing, and that's not all, is our title today. So very quickly, again, we're going to try to keep this to 20 minutes. We want to keep these very short but informative, so we're going to move pretty quickly. I'll give you a little bit of background on me as your presenter. We'll go through what the objective is of today and trying to pass along some information that we hope is helpful to you. As part of that, we will go through what we consider the weakness, which is network and folder-based solutions to storing information. We'll show an online checklist approach and talk through that, as well as a document management system approach that you can use. And then, like I said, at the end we can come back and we can focus on any questions that you may have. Okay. So, let's jump in. Sorry about that. So I'm Mike Cipriano, one of the co-founders and president of Millennia Group. We started Millennia in 1996, providing document management solutions, essentially end-to-end, from converting paper into digital and getting it organized all the way to since 2004 when we built FileStar to actually host and store and provide access to the documents as well. And in 2014, we created CollectDocs, which is an online checklist application. But I'll try to give, certainly ideas that you can use in any type of application that you may already have or may already be using. So hopefully you can take away something today very helpful. And our client base includes many of the top REITs and developers in the country. So this will be focused on the commercial real estate industry. So the issue is really knowing what you have and what you don't have, and we'll go through and try to highlight the limitations of a folder-based system, whether that's Dropbox or Box or just a shared network drive, and we'll try to highlight the limitations there for you. And then we'll show you how to use an online checklist that might be maybe a project type tool only, but you can use that to help track information as well. And then we'll show you a document management system and maybe some tweaks you can make to an existing system that you can use to also help track information in your system, including a workflow example. All right, so now we will pile into our quick little demo, and what we've done is create a little bit of a representation of what Dropbox might look like, or even SharePoint, and certainly a shared network drive, right? You have a folder-based structure, and although the title was Certificate of Occupancies, I think I'll use estoppels today as an example of documents that you need to sort of track as you're collecting them. And this might have been an approach. It might be an approach that you've used in the past, where you have a spreadsheet and you have a list of all your tenants by building, and maybe they're going through a refinancing and you need to collect the estoppels, right? So you pick up an estoppel from somebody and you know who it is, and you come into your spreadsheet and you say, yeah, I got that one. I have it, right? And I can take that estoppel, put it into my tenant documents. I can browse through, right? If that's the right building, I can come in, I can go through and find where it goes and then drop it. Easy enough. Finding that information, tying this spreadsheet back to the folders is really where the complexity comes in, right? I have all these folders. Yes, I have this, but they're not connected in any way. It may, there may be missing information here. Somebody may not have entered in the correct information or entered it in at all. So there's a disconnect between what you have. certainly it's easy enough to try to go through these folders and look and, oh yeah, there's an estoppel right there, I do have one. But you don't know which of these folders doesn't have an estoppel until you click through them all, right? So in fact, that's really what your problem is. Oh, here's one that doesn't. So then I could kind of go back and I said, suppose I could just confirm this, that no, it's not there. Totally disconnected, very inefficient to try to manage that process, and I'm looking at 10, 15 tenants here out of a list of 50 or more in this particular example. So a lot of disconnect, trouble managing that in terms of finding what you're looking for and then knowing what you're missing. That's really the main issue, is knowing what you're missing. Even if you're just doing a search, right, for the word estoppel, I can see it here. I'm not exactly sure who these apply to, so I can use some of the search capabilities in the system, but that doesn't really help me very much because I don't really have enough information unless I labeled these or spelled out what they were for in great detail. Okay, so that's a folder-based effort, folder-based process, and that's going to be consistent with Box. That's going to be, as you saw on the shared network drive, there's no real way to track that spreadsheet and tie it back down to those documents. So one approach might be to use a checklist type application, and there are others. ShareFile is certainly one. There's all kinds of project management tools out there that you could use to track this and use it to make sure that you understand what you have and, more importantly, what you're missing. So let me log in and show you an example of how that might work. So I'm logged into this particular checklist, and you'll see, yeah, it's a checklist. I have in here a list of all my tenants. That's going to look very similar to this, right? I have a list of tenants just like I have here. The difference being that the spreadsheet is using, a disconnected list from the documents themselves. Here you have your list, but you also can see very clearly you have your documents attached. So if I need to see the document, I can see it. It's attached to the list. And I can get that document attached in any number of ways. I can select documents and put them in my inbox here, and I can drag a document over. I can grab more documents from my desktop. I can email documents into this inbox, and most of these online checklists are going to have similar functionality, but as you're collecting the documents now, you can start to see very clearly that this is what I have, this is what I'm missing, right? I'm missing all this other information, and that's really what the important part is understanding what you're missing. And again, this could be certificates of occupancy, this could be closing documents, this could be any type of project-oriented checklist. So to take it one step further, you can even request this information. So you can send out a request to a particular person, any email at all, and even send instructions or a template out to them of any kind. So you can put instructions for how to do the estoppel, how to submit it, and include it in with the information that you're sending, and make a request so that you've now tracked who you requested it from. So yes, you know it's missing, but at least you know that you've sent the request, when you sent it, who you sent it to, and that they at least have the instructions and maybe the form of estoppel that you're requiring for them. Within that checklist, again, knowing what you don't have is really what you're trying to accomplish. You should be able to filter these to show you, well, which items are incomplete. So now I know exactly. And again, as you start to collect more information, it's very easy to identify, whereas when you're browsing through folders, not so easy. You literally need to click through every folder or hope that the spreadsheet is correct. In this case, it's all tied together and you can clearly see it. You can go in and even do some reporting in most of these checklists. And if I pick that checklist in particular, I can see all of my requests that have been sent out. I know that one was sent on this particular date. I can see everything that's in my checklist. And then again, I can say, well, what items are not complete? So now I've reduced the number and I can see exactly who owes me the information. I know that this one has been sent out as a request. So it's very easy to track when you're using a checklist type application to manage the information. You know what you have, you know what you're missing, and even in a sort of a dashboard view, you can see that as well. In terms of a document management approach now, again, the goal being to understand what you have and what you're missing. A couple of different things you can do with a document management approach. So if you're using any kind of document management system, you really want to try to get a list type approach, a list into your system. So for instance, in this case, we have a list of tenants, right? This is our tenant list, and certainly you would have a property list as well, but here's my list of tenants. If I'm only, again, sort of sticking with our one property, I have a list of tenants. Therefore, I can run reports that show me, well, what tenants maybe don't have a document. In this case, what tenants don't have an estoppel. And I can compare my list of documents that I have in the system to the documents and the tenants that I know are included in my list, and I can clearly see, you know, Barker doesn't have, we don't have an estoppel for Barker. That report can be written for virtually any document management system that is database oriented, maybe not some of the folder based ones, but you know, you can use these lists to ensure that you've collected the information and write reports based on those lists. That's all keyed off of when you go to add a document into the system. So if I'm adding this document, and I know it's essentially a lease type document or a tenant document, and it's Barker, and it's an estoppel. So I know clearly what this document is, and these are based on lists. So because they're based on those lists, you now know that that document can be part of a report. And if I'm back in and I'm looking at my reports, Barker disappears from my list of tenants without estoppels. They're now gone. So this is another way to manage information and to understand what you have missing, to try to get the document management system to incorporate a list type approach, and then you can build reports based on that list. Okay, so that's one more way that you can try to incorporate that. That can be closing documents. That can be certainly estoppel, certificates of occupancy, construction documentation. It can literally be anything as long as you have the right lists in your system. Okay. One other way that you can do or make sure that the correct information is collected in your system is through a workflow. So you can also incorporate workflow, and we'll look at a very simple sort of lease abstraction process. And I'm logged in with a user that has only, you know, step number one of a multi-step process, but they're part of the document collection and sort of starting the package of information. So again, if we're sticking with our property, and we can pull up any, you know, add a new, let's assume it's a new tenant, and we'll go back and use sort of the certificate of occupancy approach. So I know it's a new tenant, and if I'm moving this through a lease abstraction process, right, we need to collect the documents, the lease needs to be abstracted. We need to make sure that the information gets into the accounting system, MRI, RD, JD Edwards, whatever it is, and that's what this process is. And if we know it's a legal document, maybe you're collecting the square footage because that might impact how you route this document for approval, and then you can start adding documents to your package. So I know the basic information about this tenant. I'm going to start adding documents for this tenant. And we can start moving this package of information through for review and approval and creation of the lease abstract. When I'm ready to move this through, I can change that status. But here's where you can structure your workflows in your document management system to ensure that nothing is missing. We've structured this particular workflow to not let it be moved unless a certificate of occupancy document is uploaded. So if we have a document, which I hope we do, with certificate of occupancy, and I now add that document, if you have a list of names or a list of categories, you can now structure your workflow that I cannot move the package forward in the workflow unless the list of documents that are required is complete. So now I can go change that status. Now it lets me move it and it's ready for lease abstraction. So you know by the time this gets all the way through the process, the information will all be there and all in existence. And so now you can move that package forward and it will go to the next step, so you'll be assured that, again, you have all the information. So just to kind of recap very quickly, in a document management system approach, try to use lists in your system that will allow you to write reports based on those lists that can help you identify missing information, whether or not it's estoppels, closing documents, even employee file type documents can all be tracked in this method. Use workflow if you can, build into the logic, again, a list of required documents. Use that approach to make sure that everything is collected that you need. If you are using a list, a checklist type approach, and we would highly recommend that, build those lists, use a list system that can have both the documents and the information all in one, and that way you'll be fully connected with the information. And most of the systems, including ours, when you have completed your checklist, you can export that checklist to any number of different places. You could export from CollectDocs anyway as a folder structure, a variety of different formats that might allow you to pull it into another document management system. You can export directly to FileStar. So, most of your checklist systems, the idea is it's a project. You're going to complete the project, and when you're done with that project, you're going to archive those documents, and that's exactly how CollectDocs works as well. Okay, so I will stop here. We're pretty close to our 20 minutes. Again, we really try to keep these short and sweet, but if anybody did have any questions, happy to answer any questions or go through something in more detail and open it up. So otherwise, if there are no questions, we greatly appreciate your attendance, and we'd be happy to have you back at any future Tech Talks. Thank you.